Hi, everyone. Today, I want to talk about some things that you need to consider before you start the manuscript submissions process, before you start pitching your book, before you start to query, before you start to send off your proposal for your nonfiction or your memoir. So, I've written and sold two memoirs of my own, and I got the deals for these books very quickly. That's why I know that these things are important, because it's actually about what you do before you start the submissions process that is going to impact the success of your process much more than finessing the manuscript, finessing the query letter. It's these aspects that are super, super important for a successful submission to agents and traditional publishers. So I'm creating this for you if you want to get a traditional publishing deal, you want to get your nonfiction or your memoir published, and you want to get a really good deal this year or next, so relatively quickly. Okay, so in terms of the book submissions process, what you really need to focus on very first of all is clarifying your desire and values. And what I mean by this is thinking about how this book deal and how this published book that you are about to start submitting aligns with your life and your core values. This is deep work, and this is really important because something happens with us energetically when we start a process when there is actually no room for that to be a success. And what I mean is when we say go out and pitch a book or talk to a potential publisher or agent when, say, we haven't even finished the draft, or we haven't, we've got so much going on in our lives. We've got, three new jobs, or we're starting a new business, or you're moving house, or something else, and you just think, oh yeah, well, I'll also pitch this book. You need to actually really think about what's involved in the publishing process and the business of publishing, and make sure that you have space and an understanding of how you will need to prepare for this to be a success. So let's say you pitch your book and a publisher says, fantastic, they offer you a deal and you get a book deal, which means that you need to sign a contract and agree to submit your manuscript by a certain date. Do you have the foundations in your life ready for this? Do you have space on your calendar to work through revisions with your editor or your publisher over the next 6 months? Do you have the foundations set up so that you can, particularly if it's a memoir, do the publicity that's required for a best-selling book? You will need to be visible. You will need to talk about your life. You will need to be talking about, particularly if it's a very deep or intense topic, and even during the submissions process, you will need to be able to comfortably talk about this story and make it very clear to potential agents and publishers that you are ready to speak about this. You're ready to talk about this very clearly, and you can talk about it very clearly. And you are energetically prepared for the work that is required. Because a huge misconception that so many first-time authors have, and I had this too, there's, this stuff is not taught to us in writing school, in academia, is when you sign the deal, there is still work to be done, okay? So while you might be going, okay, written the manuscript, I'm ready to pitch, thinking that the finish line is you signing a contract, that's actually the beginning of the next stage. So this first piece that you really need to clarify and get super clear on is how does this book and this work align with your long-term values and your long-term vision for your life? And are you energetically prepared and set up for this to be successful? Do you have space in your calendar? Do you have all of the support that you need to do what is required of you to a really high standard? So that's the first piece, getting really clear on your values. And that's, the fundamentals of everything. We need to know ourselves. Otherwise, we make unaligned decisions, misaligned decisions. The second piece of this is very simple and also technical. Comparative titles. Do you know your comparative titles before you start submitting your book, before you start querying, pitching, talking to potential agents or publishers? Have you got 2 to 3 comparative titles that you will be mentioning, when you say the very short pitch for your book? Now, I don't mean comparative titles as in the title of the book. I feel the need to clarify this because I have worked with a writer who I needed to explain 3 times what the term comparative titles means. So it's not commonly understood. Comparative titles, in terms of the publishing submissions process, refers to the books that sit in the category and the subcategory to which you are pitching. So if it's a memoir, do you have 2 to 3 comparative traditionally published in the last 5 to 10 years, preferably in the last 5 years, memoirs in this category? Now, if it's a narrative nonfiction, if it's a nonfiction, if it's a biography, the same rule applies, okay? Needs to be in that genre, in that category, in that subcategory. You can't be pitching your book without knowing what your comparative titles are, okay? Huge, really common unknown part of the submissions process. Need to be crystal clear on your comparative titles. Part of the reason that I teach the art of memoir the way that I do, with the foundations for success, with the what is memoir entire module, is because so many people do not know what this genre actually means. So memoir is not a fictional novel or a non-fiction novel. A true story told from your perspective is a memoir. Yes, even if it is including aspects of another's life, such as my second memoir, A Letter from Paris, which was also a biography of my father. It was told in the first person from my perspective. It was my journey to get to know my father. Even though, yes, there was a dual timeline aspect of his life, it was a memoir. And the comparative title piece really, really helped me to nail down how I was going to approach this book. It also gives you confidence that there are other books out there, and there is that evidence of need for this particular book in the publishing field. So comparative titles is a whole other topic, and I could do a whole separate video on that, and I have a couple of videos on comparative titles. And I teach you how to find your comparative titles in my programs. But you really, really, just for the fundamental basics, go to a bookshop, have a look in the section where you think that your book will sit, and pick up 2 to 3 that really appeal to you, that seem to have similar topics or themes, and identify how yours fulfills and also differs from these. Sorry, is similar to and also differs to these. Make sure they're on same topics or themes as your book. I teach comparative titles in terms of how to structure the writing of the book as well. But it's really important for this submissions piece that you know your comparative titles, because the first thing a publisher or an agent is going to ask is, or think in a question in their head is, okay, what else is sold in this category and how's it gone? Because publishing is a retail business, it's a sales business. You need to show that your book is going to sell. That's how the submissions process works, and that's how you succeed in your submission. Okay, moving to, speaking of sales, your platform, so your digital platform, because it's 2024 right now, and we are not sending out manuscripts via snail mail over ocean liners. We are pitching via email. Everything is digital. First thing a publisher or an agent is going to do is click on your name and your website, because hopefully you'll be listing your website down the bottom of your query. Now, if you don't have a website, there must be something with your name, photo, area of expertise on the internet that they can find right now. So I'm not going to go into platform here because that's a whole nother topic, but what I mean by priming your platform is, let's say you have a website. Most writers do, particularly authors who are writers who are ready to submit their manuscripts. You understand that the need for a website. One thing that I've noticed a lot with memoir writers, particularly, and actually writers particularly, and I would not have known this if I hadn't worked with different agents and editors and just had this come out through the course of conversation. Make sure that you take off any reference to this memoir in progress from your website. Do not mention it until you have the deal. Okay. The reason for this is publishers and agents don't want to be looking at your website. And okay, first of all, it confuses them, because if you have on the front page of your website, and I've noticed this on many writers' websites when they've asked me to critique their digital presence or their platform, is they'll have like maybe some photos or some references to whatever the thing is that they've written about in the memoir. But I don't know that because I haven't read the memoir yet, and the agent or the publisher won't have read the memoir yet. They're just going to be looking at your query. That's the very first port of call for, that's the first connecting piece. So if they see if there's some, vague photos of something that is perhaps in your memoir, maybe family photos or something like that, and then memoir in progress, or my memoir, or something that refers to memoir, they will think, oh, okay, that's published. That's a book that's published. If I see on someone's website, this is my memoir, or this is the next thing I want to immediately, before I even think, is, okay, where is it? Where can I read it? And so it really confuses agents, editors, publishers when you have references to this work in progress. On another level, it makes them think that you have been banging around this story for years, and no agent or editor wants to be taking on something that they feel that you've been pitching or trying to get representation for years. They want what's fresh. They want what's proven to sell. And so we flip this around, and you take that, reference to your memoir in progress or your book in progress or whatever, and I've seen a lot of, personalities and nonfiction writers have this on their Instagram. My book's coming out in 2025. And it's like, actually, they don't even have a publishing deal. They haven't even written it yet. They're just working on the proposal. So take all of that out and save up the announcements for when you have the deal. Because agents, publishers, editors respond to evidence of need, not you saying, I've got a book coming, or I'm working on a book. That does not, that's nothing. And they want to see that there is evidence of need for this book. So what you should focus on instead, or what you need to focus on instead, is creating that evidence of need. And that's what you do in the platform piece, okay? So that's where you would replace any mention of this memoir in progress, even though, you might have been writing it for 2 years and you're like, hey, I want to tell someone, I want to have it out there that, I've been working on this. I even, maybe you did a workshop somewhere or something like that. None of that is going to impress a potential agent or editor or publisher. What they want to see is that evidence of need piece. So maybe you have an essay or an article that you've published. Maybe you've been on a podcast. Maybe you had some feedback from a competition. Maybe you put together an exhibition on the topic or the theme or the aspects of your book. All of that is much better to have on your website or your digital platform than working on memoir in progress. Okay, so take that off. So these are just 4 things that you really need to get super clear on before you even start the submissions process, because it happens fast if you do things well. So with my first book, I sent the query on the Friday, and then the manuscript. She wanted the full manuscript, and then I had an offer of publication by the Tuesday, the following Tuesday. I pitched directly to a publisher, and I didn't have an agent for that deal. My second book, I managed to get the book deal and an agent. We went out to multiple publishers on multiple submissions, and I signed a book deal from a very short proposal, no manuscript, in less than 8 months, which is very, very fast in traditional publishing. So typically it'll take about 1 to 2 years for the deal to all be happening. But the actual offer and the publication, so the offers of publication, the offers of representation from an agent, that can take anywhere from a week to 6 months, for example. There's various pieces of it. So the submissions process is a whole other topic. But before you can know that you will succeed at this submissions process, make sure you get clear on these 4 things. And I'm just going to repeat them again. First thing is, how does this book and the traditional publishing deal align with your desires and your values in the long term for your career and your life? Okay, because there is going to be more work required once you sign the deal. You really need to get clear on why you want this. The second thing is comparative titles. So go to a bookshop, make sure you are clear on what's being published in your category and subcategory and what is doing well. Thirdly, a platform must be primed. You must have a website or something online which has a photo of you and your area of expertise and a description of who you are and what you do. Preferably a website with your name, under your name, okay? So absolutely fundamental basics. And lastly, take off from your social media, from your website, from any of these digital things, any sort of reference to this memoir that you're trying to sell, because no one wants to come in and think that you have been trying to get representation for months to years. It makes it look like there's something wrong with it and that they won't sign it. Okay, so I hope this very short tutorial on a very complex topic has helped you. And if you would like some mentorship and step-by-step guidance in the submissions process, I will link to where you can work with me below. Okay.